I'm not going too long. I was 4 years old. I'm from Hungary, from Budapest, and that was about the last country where the Germans came in during the Holocaust. They entered Hungary in 1944 only. So I was 4 years old at this time. And many of the Hungarians were even worse than the Germans. They were brainwashed by the Germans, and there was no way to hide the giveaway. Most of the men were taken away right away, including my father, who never came back. And the men was easier identified because in Europe only the men were circumcised, and women could hide. They had money and they were going to the countryside, could hide. But unfortunately, our neighbors gave us away, and we had to wear the yellow star to identify that we were Jewish, and we were taken into the ghetto. They had a section in Budapest, the Jewish section, which was completely sealed up, and we were pushed in there. Unbelievable amount of people in a small area, and me and my grandparents, my aunt, and my mother and myself were pushed into a basement, which was it was winter time. It was quite cold. About food, that was like nothing, and we had to hide there, and we were afraid every single day. They were taking people away from the ghetto, and we found out later on they were lined up by the Danube River, and they shoot them into the river. And as of today, they have a memory of those people. By the river, they have the shoes of the people who were shot into the river. So every single day we were praying that we shouldn't be the one who was taken away from the ghetto. As you can see, I survived with my aunt and grandmother. Later, she was able to find. My grandmother had a lot of money. She had businesses, and she found somebody outside who smuggled us out of the ghetto, and we were hiding on the countryside in the basement. I had to learn as a little child a new name, a different name, not to give myself away. And we were hiding there until 1945. It was less than a year, the Holocaust in Hungary, and then we were liberated by the Russian. We were going from one to the other bad side of the other bad area in Hungary. But it's another story, the way my grandmother saved my grandfather, because she knew that in the mental institution they wouldn't look for Jewish people. And she, as I said, she had money. She made sure that she put my grandfather into the mental institution. And that's how we saved my grandfather, and he escaped the Holocaust. My mother remarried when I was 10 years old, and my stepfather adopted me right away, and he was a Holocaust survivor from a work camp. They took him to Russia to a work camp, and he came back and he lost both of his legs. He was a cantor. And they had to amputate both of his legs like 10 centimeters under the knee. And they gave him artificial legs, which he was walking beautifully with it. But still, he couldn't find jobs in Hungary because by the communist religion was forbidden. They were not allowed to practice religion. So as a cantor, he was able to do it only secretly. He was going for weddings or funerals, bar mitzvah, but he couldn't go to the synagogue to practice the religion anymore. And when he came back, he lost both of his parents. He was living in a countryside. He lost both of his parents that took him to Auschwitz. and his sister with a 6-month-old baby that burned him in the concentration camp. So, the only thing I can say that unfortunately I had no childhood. I lost my childhood of playing with my dolls because I was in hiding, and it is affecting me. Today it's still affecting me, what happened there. The other day I had to go to the front of the synagogue in Livingston Manor. We were talking to the children, the 8th graders from the Livingston Manor School. And I was kind of hesitant to go. I was scared. Everything was coming back, and what's happening nowadays in the colleges, I was afraid that maybe it poisons their high school kids also. I was afraid to go there. But of course, the president of the synagogue had some security there, the policeman was out there. But it's still, after so many years, it's haunting me. And mentally, it's affected me as a child very much. So that's about all I can tell you about the Holocaust in Hungary.
How did you come here?
I came here, like I said, my father couldn't work in Hungary, and he was disabled. So he was just a burden for the communism because they had to give him a pension and he couldn't work. Even this way, we had to apply for 5 years for a visa to go to Israel, and took 5 years until they gave us a permission, and I was under 16 there, so I was on their visa. I didn't need a separate passport. So we emigrated in 1955, just before the revolution, emigrated to Vienna, where my father had one of his brothers who survived. He was Orthodox, he was very, very religious. I think he was not even Orthodox, he was Hasidic. And I was not used to it. I was terrified. I didn't know what was going on in that household. And he didn't even trust my father. He was going after him on Saturday and smelled in the bathroom if he wasn't smoking anything. So my parents decided to stay in Vienna, and they sent me to Israel to a boarding school, because the way we were brainwashed as children in Hungary under communism in the school, that it's no religion, no God, nothing. My parents wanted to learn me about the religion and about Judaism. Unfortunately, they didn't know what kind of a school they're sending me to. It was a very liberal school, so I learned about history. I became a very good Israelite, but religion, again, I came back. It took me a very long time in my life to learn about God and religion again. So after I came back from, it's a long story again, I had to go to the army. When I stepped to Israel, immediately I was a citizen, because we came out with an Israeli visa. So at age 17, I had to go to the army. My parents were terrified, and they sent a note to the army that I'm the only child. My mother is going to surgery. They want me to be there, so I got a visa for 3 months. And I had to go to Vienna. I was extending the visa, but after a while, I couldn't anymore, because in Vienna you can get asylum only if you are from a communist country. But at that time I was an Israeli citizen already. I had to get married, and then I got divorced. My parents were in America already, so I applied for America. It took me about a year until they checked. I was 21 at that time already. And I was first preference because my parents were here. I'm just pointing God because of the illegals now. It took me 1 year at that time. They checked me medically, if I have tuberculosis or anything, and they checked me politically as a 21-year-old. So after 1 year, I was able to. I came here. I was 21, In 1961 I came here. Yeah. And at that time also it was no such thing as welfare or anything, that my parents had to sign paper that until I find a job or anything that they're supporting me. It was different than it's now. I came here in 1961.
Eva, you said you had a Jewish-sounding name when you were younger. You had a different name.
Excuse me?
Did you have to change your name?
No, it was only when we were in hiding they gave me a false name.
Okay.
Because we were hiding with Christian papers. But then when we came out of hiding again, I was back to my normal. They said I was a very smart child and I didn't give it myself away. Yeah.
Do you remember what that name was? Do you remember what name you were given?
Marika. It was a Hungarian name, yeah. It was just a plain Hungarian name. Yeah.
And I know when you and I had spoken, you talked a lot about a feeling of trust and not trust.
Trust and not trust. It was beginning from the neighbors from Hungary when we were during the Holocaust, we were in hiding in the ghetto. My experience, as a child, that the people, the way they were looking at us and the way they gave us away. And then again, under the communism, you couldn't even trust your relatives or your best neighbors because everybody was out for themselves. And if you were not part of the party, they were just spying on you and giving you away. And people were disappearing. They took them to Russia, to
Gulag.
No.
When you were hiding with the Christian family, how long were you in hiding with them?
Just a few months. Hungary was a Holocaust in Hungary. It was fast, but it was short because they came in 44, only in 45. April 45 was over.
So this idea of trust and no trust, but your mother, your grandmother, they felt they could trust the Christian family or the Christians who were helping you hide?
Evidently, they were paid off. They were paid. They did it for the money. They were paid off. Mm-hmm.
Did you find it hard to get a job? You were saying that you had to have it. Your parents had to say they were going to support you until.
Yeah, well, I learned. I went to further educate. I went to school in Vienna before I came here. So actually, I was a bookkeeper. But then when I came, I couldn't speak English at that time. So first, I worked as a cosmetician. I worked in New York. Some Hungarian friend of us worked there, and it was a very good name, Georgette Klingeren on Madison Avenue. And I worked there. I had a permanent learning permit. And after that, I didn't finish that. I just went on to learn key punch. That was my first step to bookkeeping because I worked together with a bookkeeper until my English was good enough and I was able to work as a bookkeeper. And then I retired as a controller, so I was working all my life.
Did you take English classes when you were here?
Actually, I didn't. I never really had time. I worked right away. I didn't have time. And I learned English by, I read a lot. I was reading the newspapers all the time and watching television. Unfortunately, the first job I was working, there were too many Hungarians there. And then when I started working with Americans, I picked up their language. I still have problem actually with the way I put together my sentences, they're telling me it's still the Hungarian way.
Are you better in Hungarian, German, Hebrew, or English?
Which
is best?
Which the best?
If you had to learn German, you had to learn Hebrew.
Yeah, I think, Hungarian and English is the best, but because actually, if it's not your mother language, you forget the language very fast, very easy. Now, my partner for 20 years is Israeli, so when I hear him talking to his friends, the language is coming back. Words are coming back, but I don't really speak it anymore, like putting sentences good together. I pick up
If you
words
went back
here
for
and
1
there.
week, you would talk again.
German again, I didn't have much time to talk to anybody here when I came back because my family and friends were Hungarian, but I speak better German than Hebrew, and it was Hungarian and English. Yeah, you don't forget your mother language.
Did you ever return to Hungary to visit?
To visit to Hungary, we went back a lot of times. Yeah,
What were your impressions?
I'm from Budapest. Yeah.
How did it feel to go back?
For me, it was not so bad. The child memories, it was not that strong. I wasn't afraid anymore because the politics were different. It wasn't bad.
And you mentioned that there was a cantor in the family.
My stepfather, yes.
Right,
My father is a
stepfather.
cantor, yeah.
Right, who I know you've said that you loved, like he was your father.
Yeah.
And then I know that because you shared previously that you have a son. So can you share the connection that they have? What's their shared connection?
My father and my son, and that's a funny collection. He idolized always my father, and he loved my father. It was for him, it was the only grandfather, and he loved him. And he always watched him playing the keyboard and singing, and he's a rock singer now. It's a little bit
But he sings.
far away, but he was his idol. Yeah. In the city, when we were in the city, lived in the city, he was teaching vocals, and he always had his father's picture out there in the studio. Yeah, my father. Yeah.
Anyone else? Questions?
Have you been back to Israel?
Back to Israel? No, I never went back to Israel. Actually, I'm a criminal. I escaped the army.
Were you an only child?
I'm only child, yes.
And did you have, I know from other speakers that we've had, some of them would come up during the summers from the city because they would go to camp with other children whose parents had survived the Holocaust. Did you have like a network of other children who were also children of survivors that you would spend time with? No. Okay.
No. I never kept contact with those children. No.
Did your parents have a network? Your mother, your stepfather, when they were here, of other survivors? Were they part of that community?
They used to live in Brooklyn in a religious neighborhood, and there were a lot of survivors there. Yeah. And then after a while, they went back to Vienna because my father couldn't really get a job here because they were afraid of him, his leg, that he would not be able to stand long enough. But he had a steady job in Camden, New Jersey for high holidays, but that wasn't enough. So they went back to Vienna because they didn't want to take advantage of the system to go on welfare. And in Vienna, they had a lot of friends, and they were able to get always jobs for funerals or bar mitzvahs. And then after a short while we were in Vienna, that's when they came out with the Wiedergutmachung, to get compensation. And this way, then they were in the age, when they were getting Social Security in Vienna and they're getting the compensation, they were able to survive. That's also, for anybody who's denying the Holocaust, if it is a denial, why do the Germans pay us?
Good point.
That's the only thing I can tell the people for the denial.
So where do you live today, please?
I'm sorry.
Where do you live today?
I live today in Roscoe.
Oh,
I came up here from Queens. We used to live all my life in Queens and work in Manhattan. And then when my grandchild was born in Manhattan, my son and my daughter-in-law decided to get out of the city to give a better life to my granddaughter. So when we retired, we followed them up here. Didn't live. They live by Calhoun, so too close for comfort. For mother-in-law, I live in Roscoe.
Where did you live in Queens?
Rivo Park.
What years were you there? I'm just curious because of my mother's association.
Well, I came up here about 17 years ago.
Until then, you
all the
lived
time I lived in Rivo Park, yeah.
I'm just asking, did you ever hear of Tel Hai Yehuda? Tel Hai Hadassah?
I'm sorry.
Did you ever hear of Tel Hai chapter of Hadassah?
No.
No. That's a whole other story.